Karen insists on marrying a felon. My pregnant daughter, who's 22, is about to marry an incarcerated man. How can I go about this situation? I'm concerned for my daughter. Yes, she's an adult, but I feel like she's making the worst decisions for herself. I don't approve of this at all. My daughter had good things going on for herself. She graduated high school, went to college, and graduated with her associates, got accepted into dental school. And all of it's going down the drain because she's chosen to invest her time and energy into her soulmate. About a year ago, my daughter started writing letters to prisoners as a pen pal to keep them company. At first, I was uncomfortable with the idea for many, many reasons. It never crossed my mind that she would fall in love with a criminal, but I still rented a P.O. box for her so she wouldn't give out her address. My daughter was in a healthy relationship with her now ex-fiancé. They've been together since senior year in high school. They just had their first baby over a year ago, expecting another, and they got engaged 6 months ago. A month ago, my daughter told me that she and her fiancé were taking a break, and 2 weeks ago, she called off the engagement and left him. He's a complete wreck now. He told me it hurts that his family that he created with my daughter is now broken. He feels so blindsided, as do I, because I believed my daughter was truly in love. But she wasn't. She wasn't happy. I've been very supportive of my daughter during this whole situation. That is, until she told me she was already in a new relationship. I was taken aback. I obviously started questioning her about it, and she confessed that she had fallen for one of the prisoners she's written to. In fact, they've been together for 3 months. It makes me so sick to my stomach even typing this out right now because I just can't believe it. She said they've been in contact for almost 8 months, and since then, they've fallen more and more in love with each other. She's visited him multiple times. In fact, she's even taken my grandson to see this man. She's shown me pictures of them embracing and him holding the baby. I've done some research and looked up his charges, and I'm livid she even brought my grandson, even herself, around someone who could do such horrible things. I'm terrified for my daughter and my grandson. I've tried expressing my concerns to her, but she's in a whole other world. She told me the last in-person visit they had, he popped the question, and she said yes. That was when I snapped. I was and am very upset about this whole situation, and she's hurt that I'm not supportive of her decisions. She defended their relationship and her choices, and we started arguing. It got so bad that now she's not speaking to me or allowing me to see my grandbaby, and it breaks my heart. I love my daughter, but I will never approve of this relationship. I understand that as an adult, she has the right to make her own choices, and I've always been proud of her independence, but as someone who truly loves her deeply, it's hard for me to watch her make a decision that I feel could be harmful to herself and my grandson. I'm scared for her because of what I've learned about this person's past, and I can't shake the fear of what could happen. I don't want to lose her or my grandson to a situation that seems so risky. I don't know what else I can do, and I feel hopeless. What else can I do? Update: after receiving a lot of comments with suggestions on how I should handle the situation, I told the father of my grandchildren about what's been going on. He was my soon-to-be son-in-law, and I've grown to love him as if he were my own. I believe he has every right to know about the well-being of his kids, so I confessed everything to him. Thankfully, I have a family therapist who is a very close friend of mine. She's been here with us since the divorce between me and my ex-husband. I called her, we spoke about the situation, and she agreed to guide me to tell the kid's father. I called him over to my home, and we all had a very long talk. I let him know everything, and he broke down crying hysterically. It was horrible. He felt so violated, not only as a partner to her but as a father to their kids. I made it very clear that I would support him no matter the circumstances. At this point, it's not only about my daughter but my grandkids. We discussed the charges against my daughter's new fiancé, and he was beyond livid. He actually suggested himself taking my daughter to court, and I agreed with him that it would be the best thing to do. We came to an agreement that he wouldn't tell my daughter what he knew. That way I could get more information to help him plead his case. But yesterday, it really hit the fan. Yesterday, I received angry texts from my daughter, and it didn't end well. He told my daughter that I'd confessed everything to him, and now she's beyond furious and doubling down on her decision. She's also going no contact with me. I called the children's father to ask him what the heck was he thinking, and he explained to me that he wasn't. He's been apologizing non-stop, but the damage has already been done. I'm at a loss for words. I'm heartbroken. I've officially lost my daughter and my grandkids, and I don't know what else to do. I can't imagine not being a part of their lives, and it hurts me deeply. What did I do wrong to deserve this? Is there any way that I can fix this? I'm ghosting my girlfriend, and I don't care if I'm wrong for it anymore. I'm just done. It's stupid, it's dumb, it's a bad reason, but I can't take it anymore. My blood pressure has legit been spiking over this, and I cannot keep this up. I just can't do it. We've been together for close to a year, and this problem has only come up over the past 2 months. She never did this crap when we first got together, and I don't know why she started, but I'm so sick of it. It's crazy. Whenever we get food, she always eats off my plate, no matter what it is or where we are. The only thing that stops her is if I order the exact same thing as her, and she's taken to ordering things that I can't eat so that I can't do that. If I tell her to stop in the moment, she just laughs. And when I talk to her about it privately, she blows me off because it isn't a big deal. But it is to me. I have a history of food insecurity, which makes it a lot worse, and I've tried to explain that, but then she snaps at me that I'm being condescending, and I just can't. Most recently, she had a plate full of her pizza on the table and had eaten over half of my medium pepperoni, and I was so upset I just grabbed 2 slices off her plate without asking, which made her go into shock for a moment before screaming and going red in the face. You don't even like olives, you jerk. You always have to be right about everything. You can't just let me have one thing. As if I had been the one consistently stealing from her for months. I just went cold, tossed the pizza back on her plate as she was in my face screaming. Then I just left the apartment. She texted me that there was no reason for me to act like that, and I knew then and there that I was done. I'm getting away from her now. She's tried to apologize, but I'm not going to hear her again or answer any messages or calls from her. God only knows if she'll decide to call the cops and have me arrested when I haven't even done anything, and I'm not taking the chance. If I'm so awful, then she can get away from me. I know ghosting is wrong. I've been through it before, but after that, I don't know if I trust myself to speak to her cordially again. I want to scream back, but that isn't who I am, and that's not how I was raised. I don't like the person she's turned into, and I hate the person she's turning me into. How my friend got paid to find creative ways to sleep for 19 months. I have a good friend who maliciously complied her way into getting paid for essentially doing absolutely nothing for 19 months. It was a government job, no surprise there. She and her colleague worked in a state office that kept track of plague cases among prairie dog towns. They were super busy trapping and testing all summer, but once winter comes, prairie dogs hibernate, so they ran out of work. They told their boss via email there was no more to do for this season that first autumn, and their boss responded by telling them to stand by for reassignment. So they did. For months. They didn't want to be accused of theft by just clocking in and out and leaving, so in the very beginning they organized some storage spaces very slowly, cleaned their office several times, organized paperwork, and that sort of thing. When they ran out of things to do, they started sleeping, doing schoolwork, Sudoku. Initially, they slept in turns, so someone was always available if anyone came to check in on them. But when it became obvious no one was coming, they stopped bothering. By summer the following year, when the prairie dogs came out of hibernation and she thought her work might resume, the whole office, all the employees in every department, received an email from someone high up informing everyone that particular department had been cut. Don't know if it was unfunded, or they got all the data necessary the previous summer, or that particular pet project of some politician was forgotten about, but somewhere along the line. The state fish and game axed the project for whatever reason. Nothing was mentioned in the email about her job status, so she and her CO worker continued to go in and do nothing. She had told me about making a giant binder rubber band chain and roping 2 office chairs together, facing each other to sleep in the seats. She's only 5 feet tall, so she fit relatively well, making a nest under her desk and moving the large copy machine out of its cabinet and sleeping inside. They made sure the security people saw them periodically throughout the day, and they were on camera. Anyone above them paying attention would have noticed, but no one ever took the time. They dodged folks in the other departments for fear they'd get holed on and just minded their own business. They rarely had much interaction with other employees anyway. Eventually, she ran into her boss at a show, and she asked my friend where she had found new work. My friend didn't lie and said that she still worked there where you left them. She said you should have seen the look on her face when the lady put the pieces together and realized what was going on. The jig was up, and she and her colleague were let go that following morning via email before they went in. Because they had technically worked there for so long, I think 2 years was the threshold, they both got a little severance package. In case you're wondering, they got to keep their pay since 1, they had proof they informed their boss they had no work, and she clearly saw the email and responded. 2, they still showed up. 3, they did exactly what they were told. And 4, it wasn't their job to make sure they actually had work to do. They both qualified for unemployment to boot. Neither of them used the unemployment since they had both been feeling like the gravy train was sure to derail any day, so they had new jobs lined up. Our dog is suddenly very attached to my wife and won't leave her alone. Otis is 3. We adopted him at a year old from the shelter. He's always been very snuggly, and my wife has always been his human, but recently he's been taking it to another level. Otis is a big black pit bull with docked ears and tail. We adopted him like that. We know that he's a giant ball of blubber and love, but other people don't. So we've been very careful to train him not to be scary, great manners, no jumping or barking, etc. Basically, this is very out of character for him. A week or two ago, my wife got some sort of stomach bug. She was really nauseous and ill for about a week. Otis is very in tune with her emotions. We once got in a fight and she was upset. I swear he was staring daggers at me, and during this time didn't even want to leave her to go on walks. We thought it was adorable. Well, now my wife is feeling much better, and his attachment hasn't gone away. It seems like he got used to her being home all day for that week and developed separation anxiety. My wife goes into the bathroom, he cries outside the door, she leaves for work, he mopes by the front door until she gets home, and when she gets home, all he wants to do is cuddle with her. It's getting annoying. Well, half the time it's annoying, the other half it's cute. Then tonight on their walk through the park, another dog ran up to her and Otis. Lots of people let their dogs run around off-leash, even though they're not supposed to. The moment it got near my wife, apparently Otis began to bare his teeth and growl. He's never done this before. We're trying to figure out what's going on. If this is the start of an aggression issue, we'd like to nip it in the bud. We'll call the vet tomorrow for a checkup just to make sure he isn't hurting anywhere and manifesting it like that, but mostly we're just confused. I don't know if we're overreacting. We may be. Maybe the growling and the attachment were separate incidents, and there was something about that one dog that he really didn't like. Has anyone else's dog suddenly developed attachment or aggression issues? Any chance your wife is pregnant? Uh-oh, exactly what I thought. Do a pregnancy check, OP. Maybe Otis should parent the kid too, since he's clearly more switched on than either of us. Edit. I've been informed that it's possible my wife is pregnant. She's sleeping now, but I'll tell her, and she'll take a test tomorrow morning. Update. My wife is pregnant. Otis is still being overprotective, but it all makes sense now. Thanks for all the advice and kind words. Would I be the jerk if I dumped my boyfriend for being a snobby movie critic? My boyfriend hosts his own podcast dedicated to movies, and he even has his own studio that he's renting out so he can record there. He has some CO hosts, legit recording equipment, and he has a decent following. I always go to the studio to just sit on the side and watch as he records. But I've noticed that he started to become a bit different ever since the start of the podcast. On a podcast a few weeks ago, the topic was 2016 movies, as my boyfriend and his CO host revisited some of their favorites and least favorite films of 2016. One TO host brought up Arrival as their favorite film of 2016. And while he was talking, my boyfriend loudly says, "Yawn," and he explains that he thought Arrival was boring. My boyfriend then goes into this giant rant about how he hated Arrival, calling it one of the most overrated movies of all time. He says that he looks down on people who like the movie because he claims that they think they're smart. And he says that he's proud of himself for seeing past that movie and its faux attempts at intelligence. And whenever someone would try to change the subject, he'd just interrupt them and go right back to talking about how much he hates Arrival. Then just a few days ago, he was recording another show and the topic was MCU movies. My boyfriend brought up that he thinks Age of Ultron is a hidden gem and a massively overlooked masterpiece. One of his CO hosts scoffed when he said those things, and that set my boyfriend off. He started going off on the CO host for his taste in movies and started saying things like, "Just because I have a better understanding of the art of filmmaking, it doesn't mean you have to be jealous of me." That was actually enough for the CO host to just walk out in the middle of the show, and my boyfriend said, "That's fine. I only want to talk to true lovers of film on this show." And just yesterday, I asked him if we could see Shazam together, but he simply responded with, "I deserve better than those DC movies." I confronted him and told him that he needs to stop acting like he's smarter than everyone over his taste in film, and he said, "Truth hurts, doesn't it? And it's like this a lot." Whenever I'm watching a movie he doesn't like, he'll just scoff and say, "Typical. I'm thinking of breaking up with him, but I also feel weird about dumping him over having differing views on film. What do you think?" Not the jerk. I don't think you're breaking up over your differing views on film, but rather his crappy attitude. Last night was another podcast between my boyfriend and his remaining co-host. Before every actual recording of a show, they always get together in another room to briefly go over what they're going to discuss on the show. And the topic this time was Star Wars. They were going to talk about the new trailer for Episode 9 as well as rank their favorite and least favorite Star Wars films. During the pre-show meeting, I was thinking about how I was most likely going to break up with him after the show had been recorded, but another opportunity presented itself during the meeting. My boyfriend and his co-host were talking about the Star Wars movies, and my boyfriend brought up that his favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith, and his least favorite is A New Hope. He said that Revenge of the Sith is the most epic and action-packed, whereas the original movie is too dated. His co-host disagreed, and they started talking about their opinions, which led to them talking about The Last Jedi. But then my boyfriend turned that conversation into one about another highly divisive 2017 film, Mother, starring Jennifer Lawrence. My boyfriend hailed it as one of the top 5 films of all time and the most artistic film he's ever seen. His co-host wanted to get back on track to Star Wars, but my boyfriend kept wanting to talk about Mother. The co-host responded with, "Mother is an edgelord high schooler's version of artistic," and that was enough for my boyfriend to go red in the face and say, "Well, at least I try to have actual taste unlike you." The co-host simply said, "I'm done," and got up and walked out of the room. My boyfriend just stood there, then he turned on me. He said to me, "What the heck are you looking at?" I just stood up and told him that we're also done as a couple. I explained that I can't stand his crappy way of talking to people and constantly acting like he's so much better than everyone. He starts telling me that he needs me and he was planning on asking me to join the podcast. He dodged a bullet there, but I just told him no and I walked out of the room. While I was leaving the building and getting an Uber, my boyfriend sticks his head out of the front door and screams, "You jerk!" I just ignored him, went home, and now here I am. Your boyfriend doesn't even sound like he likes movies. He just likes using movies to try and look superior to others, unsuccessfully at that. Since he doesn't know how to disagree without coming across like a loudmouth jerk. Movies and art in general should be about conversation and community, not one-upmanship. I hooked up with my neighbor. Now he won't stop stalking me. So I made a huge mistake recently that I really regret. I, 22 female, ended up hooking up with my neighbor, who's 30 male. We live in the same building, and I came home from a night out about 2 weeks ago, and I met him in the hallway. We got talking, and he invited me back to his place. We had a drink, one thing led to another, and it just happened. I have to admit it was pretty awkward and bad. I'm cringing as I write this, but as we were doing this, he told me that he loved me. We had spoken about twice before this night, so I got my first impression maybe he was a bit strange. I was really embarrassed by the whole thing, thought he would be too, and not very maturely decided to just avoid him. I thought he would get the hint that it was just a drunk one-time thing and I wasn't interested, but I kept seeing him all the time. I think he must have worked out what time I leave and get back from work because I started bumping into him way more than I used to. I kept the conversation short and acted uninterested because I thought he would get the hint and back off a little. I guess I was just avoiding that awkward conversation, telling him I wasn't interested, but in no way was I encouraging him. He persisted, and then a few days ago he added me on Facebook, which I ignored. The next time I saw him, he asked me why I hadn't accepted his friend request, so I decided to be a bit more assertive and said something like, "The other night was fun, but I'm really not interested in anything." He was quite upbeat and replied, "Okay, that's cool, but can we still be friends?" So I thought maybe I had been a bit immature towards him, and now that I've told him my intentions, we could be friends. I still think he's being a bit overly friendly with me. I'm sure he's waiting to bump into me again because I see him, like, all the time. He also is not shy about asking personal questions like about ex-boyfriends and stuff. I get that some people are more open about some things, but I find it a little weird. On Facebook, he has liked so many of my pictures. I know we all stalk people on Facebook, but he's very obvious about it. He has also messaged a couple of times asking me to hang out. My question is his behavior a bit weird, or am I just being overdramatic? I'm happy to be his friend, but I feel like he's being a bit over the top. I don't want to act like a jerk towards him, but I don't know how to really tell him to tone it down without coming across as one. He's someone I will probably keep seeing, so I feel I have to be nice to him, but he's really weirding me out. Dude, you should not have brushed off his "I love you" comment. I only brushed it off because I thought it was a silly drunk comment, and I didn't want to make the whole thing even more awkward by mentioning it. Maybe I have been oblivious, but I just didn't think anyone would say that when they were hooking up with someone they didn't really know. Hindsight is a great thing, but I've deleted him on Facebook for now, and I hope it will all just subside. I've told a couple of friends about it anyway, so if things get worse, they know, but honestly, I don't think he's that crazy. You really do not have to be his friend. I really was happy to be his friend, but I found him a bit overwhelming because I felt like I couldn't leave my home without having to see him and talk to him. And his presence on Facebook was pretty annoying. I do agree though. I don't have to be his friend, and I quite like the way you worded it, how to break it off, so thanks. Update, 4 days later. The first thing I did was delete and block him from Facebook, but that's the easy bit because I was still going to have to talk to him in person. I coincidentally ran into him on Monday. The first thing he said to me was, Have you deleted your Facebook or something because I can't find you anymore? So I went for it and gave a long speech about how he's a nice guy and I thought we could be friends, but I feel like I'm leading him on by hanging out together as I'm really not interested. He replied that he really does just want to be friends and that it would be more awkward now if we're not. I just said something like, I don't want to give you the wrong impression, so I think it's best for now if we're not. And then I just quickly left before he could say anything else. I felt like a bit of a jerk saying it, but I guess I had to tell him, and I'm glad I did because he was overwhelming me slightly. So far it's worked, and I haven't actually seen him since then, but it's only been like 2 days. However, last night I got a rambling long letter through my door. It came quite late, so I'm almost hoping he was drunk or something when he delivered it because I think it's kind of weird and also vaguely insulting. I think I'll just type it out as it's difficult to explain the tone of the letter. So here it is, dear Op. You didn't give me much of a chance the other night, and there is more I wanted to say. Though this might actually be an easier way for me to explain my thoughts and feelings. I know we had only talked a few times before our tryst, but I felt like there was an obvious connection between us. I'm sure you must have felt it too, or I don't think you would have come home with me that night. I'm not the type of guy to hook up with random people I don't really know well, but I was extremely attracted to you. And when it appeared you reciprocated my feelings, I couldn't help myself. When you told me you weren't interested in anything romantic, I understood, even if it was not what I wanted to hear. I don't know anything about your personal life, part of the reason why I'm not usually interested in hooking up with random people, and so of course I realize why you might not be interested in me. However, I think it is strange you don't at least want to be friends. We shared something very special with each other, and you can't pretend it never happened. It therefore seems only logical that we become friends. It only makes it more awkward if we aren't. I just want to say, if you feel embarrassed or worried that I think of you as crappy, don't be. I don't judge you, that would be a terrible double standard, though be careful because some men may see your behavior as crappy, especially if you refuse to talk to them after. Just like when a guy doesn't call a girl after they hook up, he's seen as a jerk. Really, the point of me saying all this is just to repeat that I understand you are not interested in a relationship with me. And I respect that. However, I'm just going to say it, I really like you. You're a fun, smart, and beautiful girl, and I would love to get to know you more. I don't think you can deny that we got along very well before that night, and I don't think what happened should change anything. Don't think you're leading me on. I'm a grown guy, and I know that no means no, and can handle just being friends with you. But I respect what you said to me, even if it hurt a little, and will keep my distance from you from now on. If you change your mind, and if you ever want to talk to me or if you need anything, you know where I live, and I will always welcome you. That's what neighbors are for, right? I do feel a bit bad because he obviously does like me and has put a lot of emotional value on what happened between us. But I just don't feel like I can deal with someone as intense as him. Maybe it's just me. But I do think that his letter has confirmed that he is a bit odd, so I'm glad that I said what I said, and I was upfront with him. I think he'll leave me alone now. He has so far, though I hope if we do see each other we can be polite and it won't be too awkward. But it probably will be. Make sure your friends and family know about him. Thanks, I already have. But hopefully, things will go no further. Update 2. I was hoping that there would be no more updates to this because he managed to go for a week without contacting me. I hadn't seen or heard from him for a few days, so I thought things were blowing over and he had gotten over it. Then yesterday afternoon, I was getting some stuff out of my car and I suddenly hear his voice say, "Hey, do you need a hand?" Of course, we were going to see each other again at some point. And I thought I was polite with him by just saying, "Hey, no, I'm fine, thanks." I really didn't think this was rude, and I really didn't need any help anyway, but he seemed to get offended by it and started to get mad at me. He said something like, "What's your problem? I'm only trying to help you. All I've ever done is be nice to you, but you're still acting like a jerk." I think he said more, but I was kind of shocked at how he reacted. He stormed off before I could say anything. But I don't even know what I would have said as I was a bit stunned, and also totally embarrassed because there were people around who probably heard it all. I was also a bit upset because I know that he is allowed to feel a bit used or whatever, as he obviously liked me more than I liked him. But I do think this outburst was uncalled for. I've made my feelings clear to him now, and I know the truth hurts sometimes, but I don't think he has to take it out on me like this. This morning I woke up to another letter. This one is quite short, and so I'll just type it out again, dear Op. I want to apologize for shouting at you earlier. I let my anger get the better of me and I'm sorry about that, but I can't help but get frustrated at your behavior. I get that you're not interested in me and that you don't want to be my friend, even if I do find it strange. You're aware of my feelings on this, so I won't repeat them. However, when someone is trying to help you, it's good manners to accept it, or at the very least be grateful. Again, I'm sorry, and I realize I need to think about the way I acted and will try not to do it again. By the way, this is how adults deal with awkward situations. They don't pretend they never happened. Hope you accept my apology and the little bit of advice I gave you. Maybe I should be grateful he apologized. But I almost think this letter is worse because he's not even trying to hide the insults and is totally patronizing. I don't know how to deal with him anymore. He seems to have gotten over his love for me, but now he has some grudge against me. If he really thinks all this about me, I don't even know why he wants to talk to me and be friends. It must have been like a month since we hooked up now, so I don't know why he can't accept it and just move on. I kind of want to talk to him again now, but I get the feeling that's what he wants me to do. Should I just ignore him and hope that he gets bored when he realizes I won't give him any attention? Or should I tell him again more assertively that I want him to leave me alone? I'm so stressed about seeing him again though because I don't know what it's going to be like. Time to move. I'm actually seriously considering this, but I can't really afford to. I'm thinking this would be the easiest thing to do though. My parents aren't really an option, but I'm going to call my brother. For obvious reasons, I haven't told him anything about this, but I'm going to tell him and I think he would help me out financially. Call the cops. I did think about doing this, but I just don't know what I would say. I hooked up with someone and now they've sent me a couple of letters even though I don't want him to. I just don't think they will take it seriously. I think I will call them to see what my options are, however. Even if I can get a no-contact order or whatever, I don't think I would want to live that close to him and have to see him regularly. Update 3. Hopefully, this is the final update. Things have happened quite quickly since my last one. I was still kind of undecided whether I should write to him to tell him to leave me alone, as this would give me proof of things if it went further, or to just ignore him. Anyway, I called my brother, who I didn't initially want to tell about all of this, but I thought I probably should tell someone in my family. He was totally adamant I shouldn't contact him and I should call the cops if he continues. So I took his advice and decided to not communicate with my neighbor. I sort of regret telling my brother now because he really did not help the situation. I had been out on Friday night and stayed over at my friend's house, so I didn't get back until Saturday morning. I came back wearing what I had been out in, so to my neighbor, it probably looked like I had spent the night with a guy. So this may have made him a bit more angry. He was in the hallway when I got back. I'm totally sure he had been waiting for me and said to me, "I don't appreciate getting threatening messages from your brother." I honestly had no idea what he was talking about, so that's what I said, and I found out that my brother had sent him some kind of threatening message telling him to leave me alone. He then was saying stuff like, "Why can't you tell me this yourself? Why can't you at least talk to me? Or I just don't understand you." I responded something like, "I'm sorry about the messages. I didn't know he sent them, but I have told you I don't want you to contact me anymore, yet you keep sending me these letters. And I think he's just worried about me." This is when he got pretty angry and was saying stuff like, "What are you worried about?" and how he had just been trying to be nice. Yeah, he actually said that. He pretty much just repeated what he said in the letters, but it was the first real time he actually scared me a little. I didn't really know what to do, but then he started calling me insulting names to my face, and I was like, "Forget this. I'm not listening to you anymore. Leave me alone," and I went straight to my apartment. As I was walking away, he tried to backtrack and apologize, but I didn't want to give him any more attention, so I ignored him. The first thing I did after this was talk to my brother again because I was kind of annoyed at him for getting involved, and I wanted to find out exactly what he said. So he got his Facebook from one of my friends and sent him this message, "You need to leave my sister alone. You're creeping her out. If you don't, there will be consequences." So I guess it does sound a little threatening, but it's not as bad as I thought it might have been. Even though I was worried that my brother's message might have been seen as provocation, I decided that I was going to call the police. I waited until the next day because I was tired and it was a bit late after talking to my brother. I shouldn't have been surprised that I woke up to another letter. I think he loves having the last word. It's not very long, but here it is, dear Op. I'm sorry for some of the things I said to you yesterday. I didn't mean them, but the heat of the moment got to me. I did feel threatened by what your brother said to me. All I've tried to do is talk to the person I live next door to after I hooked up with them. You've made it pretty clear you're not interested in me, and I have accepted that. However, I have explained to you multiple times that I find it strange you don't want to talk, so I think you could be more understanding to my feelings instead of just labeling me a creep. I think we need to talk like adults in person because I feel so frustrated that you don't understand what I've tried to say to you in my letters, and the only way to do it now is face to face. I won't let my anger get the better of me like it has previously, and surely you must see this is a better idea than getting your brother to send me messages. There was no way I was going to talk to him in person again. as the last 2 times we spoke, he just got angry with me and started calling me names. I wanted the whole situation over now, so I called the police. It was the non-emergency thing, and they were actually very helpful. I was prepared for them to not care. They asked me to go to the station, and I had to show all of the stuff he sent me. The letters and Facebook messages, etc., they filed a report, and originally they offered to call him, but when I told them I didn't have his number, they said they would go and talk to him. I just want to make this clear for those who responded to me before saying going to the cops was too far. This isn't a restraining order. He hasn't been charged or anything. All I've done is file a police report, and we have both agreed to not contact each other, and if either one of us contacts each other, then it will go further. I was sort of expecting him to send another letter after this, but he hasn't. I know it's only been a couple of days, but I do feel better about the situation now. I'm going to stay here for now. I might talk to my landlord, but I don't think he would let me break my lease. If I feel like I don't want to stay, I think my brother would help me out with money. I do feel bad about what happened, and of course, I should never have hooked up with him. The number one lesson I've learned is don't hook up with your neighbor. But if anyone reading this finds themselves in a similar situation, I guess my advice is to trust your instinct and go to the cops because they can be helpful, and it doesn't mean they're going to start arresting people. Anyways, thanks for all the advice. It was appreciated. Final update. What a mess this has all turned into, but I really do think it's over now, so I thought I would do a quick final update. Initially, I was thinking I would just try to stick out living there until my lease ended, but on the encouragement of some of the replies to my last post, I decided to talk to my landlord. He was not really very understanding and was like, "You shouldn't have hooked up with him," which I guess is true. He said there's nothing he can do now, but if I wanted to break the lease, I could, but it would cost me 2 months' rent as a termination fee, and I have to give 60 days notice, though he did say to let him know if anything else happens. So I left it, but I was living in constant anxiety of seeing him or that he would just do something else. Then I talked to my brother again, and he told me that my neighbor had been messaging him saying things like, "How does it feel to know your sister's a jerk?" and other similar things. I wasn't really sure if I could go to the police again with this because it wasn't directly contacting me, but I realized I didn't want to stay anymore. My brother agreed to help me come up with the money, so I thought that would be that and I could get away. Then maybe a couple of days later, I ran into my neighbor. It probably was just a coincidence. It was bound to happen at some point. The weird thing was he was being super friendly and asked how I was, etc., and didn't mention any of the stuff that had happened. I found it almost creepier than when he was being aggressive, and I told him that he was supposed to be leaving me alone, and I wanted him to stop contacting my brother. He said something like, "I thought we had moved past all that." This is when I seriously began to think there's something really wrong with him, and I just told him again to leave me alone. Then, surprise, he sent me another letter. I can't find it right now, but it basically said there was no need to contact the police before, and I hope you aren't thinking about doing it again. But the tone of it was kind of threatening. I went to the police again, and things got a little more serious this time. I got a temporary injunction against him. Then there was a hearing, and I got a final injunction restraining order. Because of this, I was able to break my lease without a termination fee with only 30 days' notice. I stayed with a friend for a couple of weeks, but this week, I've moved into a new place, and I finally feel like I can move on from all of this. Thanks for the advice. It surely gave me the confidence to go to the cops.